I feel like I'm forgetting something.
What episode is this?
147. Oh, I just got a notification on my phone that says Windows Central is now live on YouTube.
I just got it on my watch. No, wait, like check it out. This is awesome because
Oh
it's us.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Hello everyone, can you hear us? Do we sound good, or do we sound bad? We're not dropping frames. That's a good start. We have exactly, according to XSplit, we have 0 viewers on Mixer, which can't be
Seven.
true because we
I see
have
seven.
8. Daniel sounds low. Okay.
uh, Let me
No,
make
no,
sure
it's
my
not you.
mic.
It's me. Because I've got you turned
Okay.
down. Because for some reason, XSplit likes to amplify a lot of the system audio. Or I might just be. All right. How's that? Say some words, Dan.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing.
All right, let me know if we sound even now. Let's close that. Let's close that. That should probably be fine. Let's make that minute smaller.
Gotta mute these. Switch accounts. So many accounts.
Check out the voice recorder. There it is. We'll be starting in just a second for those waiting. Did you tweet the thing?
Not yet. 2 more seconds. Okay, that is ready. All right, tweet is sent. You are not mentioned. Look, I'm putting hashtags and things now. Those hashtags aren't free.
Take up valuable characters. Where is it? There it is. Maybe I should just follow our account on Twitter so I see it anyway.
Test 1, 2, 3. I sound amazing. Okay.
Someone called Narco Sleepy is auto hosting us. I don't know what that means, but thank you. All right, are you ready to go?
I am so ready.
Cool. I am now recording.
I am now recording. In 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 147 for August 30th, 2019. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, and we are talking about Windows, Microsoft Surface, and everything. I'm joined by Zach Bowden here. We're going to be talking about, well, the new Windows 10 build, of course, this week. And there are some substantial changes there that may affect people who use tablet mode long term. So we'll talk about those changes. And there's definitely some confusion when that news first came out. So we'll try to explain exactly what's going on and what we think is actually happening. But the big news this week, of course, was Microsoft finally announced their hardware event, which is taking place October 2nd in New York City. And they're calling it a hardware event, but we know that's code for a Surface event. So we're going to talk about what we expect there. Actually, we've been talking about that for the last 6 months, but we'll just rehash it again and see if anything has changed there. But it should be very exciting. Let's talk about dark mode finally coming to Outlook and Microsoft 365. And then we'll round things out with some other quick bits on some reviews I did this week, including the ThinkVision M14. We'll also talk about IFA, which is coming up in Berlin. Zach and I will be flying out this weekend for that coverage. So we'll talk a little bit about expectations there. And then also about how I'm excited for Gears of 5. Zach, how are you doing on this fine episode?
I'm tired this week. I wrote a long Samsung review, and it took everything out of me.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah. I don't envy you.
I have about 10 laptops and PCs I need to review. I have companies banging at my door like, can we have it back? I'm like, geez, I rarely got to play with it. Yeah, it's a lot of work sitting down to write a review. I do have my XPS 15 review, which is about 80% done, but I got sidetracked with some other reviews. And I have some headphones coming out next week for a review, which I still got to write. But that's going to be very exciting. I usually don't, if I write about headphones, it's because these are super cool headphones. And there are actually two headphones I'm going to be reviewing. One comes out next week, and I'll probably do the other one when I get back from IFA. They're HP headphones. I'll just say that. But yeah, it's amazing headphone technology where they're going. These are mostly for gamers, by the way. These aren't like the portable kind of things, but still, sometimes these one headphones that came out next week, I remember I came home from China. It was like 2 in the morning. I had the box there. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting on the couch. I have jet lag. I'm like, let me try these things on. And I put them on, and I did this thing with the button and use its new technology. And I was so blown away. This is 2 in the morning. I stayed up till like 4 in the morning just playing around with it because it was just so wild. And it's just cool when like you try something out like that. It really kind of blows away your expectations. So look forward to that next week. It should be pretty exciting. I always like advancements in tech, and this is kind of a big one. So, but yeah, your review is pretty good for the Note 10. So you're kind of liking it, but you're pretty fair with it. You pointed out some drawbacks.
I did, yeah. I mean, like I said, I've said before, I've never been a huge fan of Samsung software, and One UI is an improvement, but it's not perfect, and it will be. I think most normal people won't mind it, but if you're somebody who has tried other Androids and has tasted the stock experience, and how fluid and fast that can be, moving to a Samsung is difficult, but you can get used to it. I'm getting used to it still. I mean, I feel with the 12 gigs of RAM in the Note 10 Plus, any bloat that Samsung throws onto it, it doesn't really hinder your experience as much as it would on, say, a device with 4 gigs of RAM or 5 or 6 gigs of RAM, as the old Samsung flagships were. So, yeah, it's a great phone. I do think it's the best phone if you're a Microsoft ecosystem user. If you're all in on Microsoft and want the very best Microsoft experiences, that tie to Windows 10 and indeed on the go, then you should get a Galaxy Note 10 or some other Galaxy in the future, since I assume this partnership will expand to things like the Galaxy Fold and the Galaxy S11 and maybe even the Galaxy S10 and the S9. But if
rumor has it the Galaxy Fold is going to be coming out in September.
Yeah, so soon. And I assume it will have things like link to Windows and whatnot.
Right.
So that should... Oh, well, we'll have to see, I guess, because your phone will have to be updated to support the larger screen, I would assume. Anyway, it might support link to Windows. But yeah, if you're just looking for the best Android phone, I don't think the Galaxy Note 10 is that. I think the OnePlus 7 Pro is still like the overall best Android phone, if I'm honest. But then again, the camera's not great on it, and I know the camera's important to a lot of people. So maybe the Pixel, but then again, the Pixel loses out in a lot of areas as well. Mainly RAM management and just sort of slowness. There isn't a perfect Android really. There's different kinds of Androids that are perfect for each person, and you just have to figure out which one's yours.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Obviously I've been pushing Huawei for a while now because I just really like their hardware. I'm actually okay with EMUI. I'm actually supposed to be getting EMUI 10 pretty soon, which is a really nice advancement. They're also going to be doing their sort of like your phone thing. But, the problem with Huawei is pretty obvious, right? I mean, everybody, as soon as I mention that name, bells go off for people. And they're set to announce the new Mate 30 pretty soon. But the rumor there is because it's a new device, it falls outside of the exceptions for the licenses Google can sell them, which means we're actually expecting that device to go on sale in Europe and other places without Google Play services, which talk about a challenge there. Now, anyone who's on Android,
just as useful as Windows Phone.
Yeah, well, of course, the difference there is it's pretty damn easy to go get APK for those things, right? I mean, it's really, really easy to do. Whereas on Windows Phone, you really just have no choice whatsoever. So there is that option, but going down that route of security, you're already dealing with Huawei security, which I still contend there's nothing to fear on their phones, but I'll leave that to you to decide. But then you're, compounding it with installing sideloading APKs. It's, that's kind of a messy situation. It's a shame because they were a company that saw, I think it was 40 to 60% growth last year in Europe for their phones. And now they saw a 40% decline because of this issue with the United States. So, Android's, it's a bag of, mixed tricks. I still recommend OnePlus. Yeah, Samsung is like the default choice. I think for a lot of people who want a high-end kind of thing. Huawei, if you want to take a risk, but you want a really good phone. I've switched away from the P30 Pro, which, while an excellent phone, for me, it's this one, the Honor 20 Pro, because it's purple. No, because I just like the form factor. It just feels great in my hands, even if it's not as crazy as the P30 Pro. And then, of course, there's the Pixel. Pixel's got a great camera. If you're just into photography, the Pixel's the way to go.
Yeah.
But the Pixel has 4 gigs of RAM. And I only point that out because you just mentioned your Note 10 has 12 gigs, which is hilarious. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's one thing I don't like about the Pixels. It's like, I think they should have at least 6 gigs. But obviously, we're going to IFA next week. We'll talk a little bit about that later. A lot of phone stuff there. We won't be covering too much phone stuff, although we'll cover a little bit, I suppose. We are invited to the Huawei event. They do like us, so maybe we'll go there. But we'll see what's going on there. Anyway, let's talk about the big news this week. October 2nd, New York City. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Have you ever been to New York City before?
I've never. This will be my first time, so I'm doubly excited.
So that's pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
Microsoft announced finally October 2nd. They didn't actually send the invites. It was more a hold the date thing, which for us in the media, we actually really appreciate
Yeah.
because these events get busy and you want to be able to plan these things out. And so they just said reserve the date, October 2nd. We don't know the date or the time rather, nor where it's happening. These are usually typically small events, very limited press there. So should be fun though. All right, let's go down the expectations here, Zach. So you wrote a really good article. You can go check out Windows Central with all the details here. But you wrote that a few weeks ago. Have you heard anything new since about what's going on? Or should we still expect Windows Lite?
So that's a very interesting question. The answer, plain and simply, is we don't really know. It's very possible that they will talk about Windows Lite and maybe even sort of tease Centaurus a little bit, but we don't know for definite. They very easily might not, because this is Microsoft after all. So first of all, let's start at what we are expecting, like more or less not confirmed, but like it's very likely to show up at the event, and that's refreshes to the Surface Pro, Surface Laptop, and the Surface Book. The Surface Pro and Surface Laptop will likely be getting some minor upgrades here and there, mostly internal spec upgrades, such as updates to like Intel 10th Gen and whatnot. There have been rumors that Surface Laptop will get an AMD variant, although I don't know if that's still happening. I've heard some conflicting reports on that. Also, USB Type-C is finally coming to the Surface Pro and Surface Laptop line. On the Surface Laptop, I believe it replaces the Surface Connect port. I'm not sure about the Surface Pro line. On the Surface Pro either replaces the display port or the Surface Connect port. But the USB-A port is remaining. That's a fact across both of them. The USB-A port will stay, and USB-C will be added somewhere on the device. The external designs for those two, I believe, are supposed to remain much the same. I would love to see a Surface Laptop that doesn't have Alcantara. I love the Surface Laptop design, but the Alcantara is the one thing that just... I like the Surface, I like the Alcantara, but since you can't remove it, once it gets dirty, it's dirty forever, and that's a huge problem.
It's definitely dependent upon color. If you get the black version or any other color but gray, you're kind of okay. Now, I don't use my laptop 24/7, which is how most people who buy one would. But you and I have both seen Microsoft employees who use a Surface laptop, the silver gray version, and that it gets quite dirty. We didn't see it change with Alcantara really with the Surface Laptop 2.
No.
So it's an interesting question whether actually it's kind of funny because if you look at the invite, talking about looking into it, the invite, the background of it actually looks like a close up of black Alcantara. And it looks like a fabric, So I don't think they're going to go away from it. If anything, I think they're going to try to improve it to make it more resilient. Put some more 3M chemicals on there. I don't know. But it'll be kind of interesting.
We're also expecting an ARM-powered Surface of some kind. Some rumors suggest it will be a Surface Pro variant. An HCX-powered Surface is what I heard, and then a few other people online sort of said, it's a Surface Pro. It'll be a SKU of the Surface Pro. Likely the LTE variant if... there is an LTE one, of course. Well, it will have to be, since I believe, Dan, is this correct? If you have an ARM Windows laptop or tablet, it has to have LTE. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is their stance. Now, we have seen the exception, which was HoloLens 2.
Right, yeah.
But that is definitely the exception there. That is a kind of a custom device. But when I talked to Qualcomm, they said, these are LTE. I guess... But who knows, right? I guess Microsoft could be make the exception there.
Yeah, but why would it make sense though for that to be the LTE one?
I
feel like if
agree.
they're making the exception again, then they're purposely just being stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would hope that they would do this but it does get into we've never seen, and I've rarely seen a company mix processors within the same line. That's different. That's kind of weird. And there is still some like, I put it this way. If Microsoft doesn't do this, I wouldn't be surprised because I do find it weird that they would have an ARM device, but then also an Intel device because there are still sort of some limitations there. They're going away. We would
Hmm.
probably definitely see the new Edge Chromium announced with ARM support. I'm running it already. Uh, so there's some. I reported over the summer at Computex about the improvements that's coming to the ecosystem in general. But it is weird that they would have like two separate processors within the same line. But there's absolutely no way they would switch to ARM for all the devices because it's
Hmm.
Surface Pro. You need that Core i7 model. So like, and the new Core i7s are pretty good.
It's
There's also the
like
question. Yeah.
they need a middle line between the Surface Go and Surface Pro now for the ARM.
Yeah, just Surface, right? We've always
Yeah.
kind of joked around about that. There's also the question: are they going to switch to 10th generation? That's what I'm really interested
I
in
believe
too.
I believe there will be Intel 10th gen for all of three staple ones. So the book, laptop, and Pro are getting 10th gen chips.
So like, and to me, again, that's kind of weird because what I've been seeing is a lot of manufacturers are sort of jumping on 10th gen Intel and then using the LTE modem as an alternative to Qualcomm.
Mm.
And I've said this before, that's not to slight Qualcomm. It's just that these companies are basically picking and choosing what's best, what's cheapest, more. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if like Microsoft doesn't do an ARM version and has just 10th gen Intel and puts LTE into it. Like to me, I don't know why. I don't know. Like it works both ways. Obviously, the Qualcomm version has benefits. It's not just, you're going to get instant on. If you never run a Qualcomm PC, it doesn't go into hibernation mode. You never at a day later turn it on and then you see the Windows logo and the little spinning. Like that never happens. It's always like a smartphone
Yeah.
just turns on. It's always connected to LTE. You don't need to manage it at all. It typically gets better battery life. And the new HCX chip, which is what we would think this would ship with, should be on par with the Core i5. And that's important because the LTE Surface Pros have always been Core i5s, right?
Mm.
Because what they do is actually they make a fanless Core i5, and where the fan goes, they put the LTE modem. If they can get around that and make this thing a fanless device, that I mean, it kind of makes sense. They could, in theory, swap them out one for one. I don't know. I'm very excited about this. This is what always makes this event exciting. Is this is the one event every year no one knows really what's happening. Like we have insight, we've heard things, but there are actually no leaks, right? Nothing is confirmed. I
Mm.
guarantee you, Walking Cat, October 1st, the night of,
You have it all.
he'll find some URLs and a couple of stock images. I
Yeah.
can bet on that. But knowing October 1st is way different than what we've seen from Google and Apple and Samsung these last few months.
Yeah. So alongside the Surface Laptop and Surface Pro lines, we're also expecting an update to the Surface Book, since that hasn't been updated in 2 years now. I believe it was October
Yes.
2017 was the last refresh for the Surface Book line. So it's well
Yep.
overdue. I would expect Intel 10th gen in there. Regarding Thunderbolt 3 on the USB-C ports, we have no idea. As far as I'm aware, if it has a Surface Connect port, it can't have Thunderbolt 3. If I'm understanding the whole PCI lanes thing that we've talked about before. So if the Surface Pro is keeping
Yeah.
its Surface Connect port and has USB-C, then it can't have Thunderbolt 3.
It gets confusing because the new ninth and 10th gens, I believe, actually add more PCIe
Oh, so
lane
maybe it's
support.
possible.
Yeah, so it gets like even I haven't been keeping up on that.
Yeah,
So,
but
but
I've asked around about this, and nobody is sure if it will have Thunderbolt 3 or not. So I'm just gonna set expectations and say it doesn't. So if it does have it, then it's a nice surprise. But if it doesn't, then everybody was expecting it to not have it.
my expectation Surface Book line
Yeah,
can get Thunderbolt 3.
right.
Laptop Pro do not. And for people who are rolling their eyes, and I I keep talking to people in the industry about this. Like what you guys want is you want Type C with power delivery and data. The people who actually need Thunderbolt 3 ports is not a lot because with a Type C power delivery port, you can do external displays, you can do external drives, you can charge the device. Like that's what you really want. Thunderbolt 3, don't get me wrong, if any device that comes with Thunderbolt 3, I'm not like, ew. I mean, it's pretty awesome to have. But to buy the hardware that actually leverages Thunderbolt 3's full capability, listen, I have an external Thunderbolt 3 drive from Dell, $500. Okay. You can easily go buy a thumb drive for like a quarter of that cost. So it's like this stuff is, and knowing that Thunderbolt 3 drive isn't backwards compatible So if you stick it in a Type-C port, it doesn't work. Those are the kind of things that Microsoft doesn't like. But I do think it makes sense on a Surface Book where you're talking heavy graphics. People will buy that equipment. But Surface Pro, Surface Laptop, not so much.
Yeah.
Plus, you couldn't do it on Surface Pro if they're going to do ARM. One of the limitations on ARM so far is input-output, I/O. It's gotten better with the HCX. They support more stuff now. I think they support HDMIs and multiple ports and all this. If you look at the Snapdragon 835 chip, it supported one Type-C port. That's all the device had. Snapdragon 850 devices could have up to two. And HCX increases. So this is an area where ARM needs to improve upon, but they definitely don't support Thunderbolt 3. So you don't want to introduce Surface Pro and have Thunderbolt 3 and then have one in the lineup that doesn't.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
That's true. So yeah, I'm not holding my breath for Thunderbolt on the laptop or Pro lines, but Surface Book, who knows there. But regarding the designs of all of these, I'm not expecting any huge changes on the outside. They should more or less look and feel the same. I would like to see some refreshes, or at the very least, I'd like to see some thinner bezels on all of these devices. Well, the Surface laptop, I think.
No, Surface laptop's actually, it's pretty.
But the Pro and the Book, slim those bezels down a little bit if they really want. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I'm not into this idea that like they need to be as thick as your thumb because you hold the device. I feel that argument. The new MateBook E that I'm using has pretty thin bezels. Not the thinnest, but they're thinner than Surface Pro, and it's totally fine. So
other things that people are expecting to see at this event is an announcement for Teams to Life, which is a consumer version of Teams. I have no idea about that, nor do I really care.
I do. I think this is kind of interesting because it brings back the concept of Rooms, which we saw in Windows Phone 7, which is a really cool idea. But the problem, of course, was adoption of Windows Phone 7 was low, and it was not interoperable with other operating systems or platforms. This Teams for Life thing solves all of that, right? It's going to be completely cross-platform. It'll launch on Android, iOS, and Windows 10, of course. And I do think it's an interesting way to sort of, combine everything, whether it's Skype, it's going to be OneNote, your calendars, your photos. Like, I think this is something kind of people would want. And I haven't really found something that is as good. If Google's system is still, like, in my opinion, all over the place, like you still need to have multiple apps installed. I could be wrong in that, but regardless, I'm not going to use it because it's Google. And Apple, I'm not sure has anything like that either. So.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what it looks like and how it functions. If it's an Electron app that's really fat and heavy like the actual Microsoft Teams app is, then I'm not going to use it because this is rubbish. But so we're expecting that as well. Like you also mentioned, Dan, Microsoft Edge for ARM devices should probably be announced there as well, especially if they are releasing an HCX device of some kind. Now, moving on to the things that we're less sure about. Earbuds, Surface earbuds. This is something I think Brad Sams first reported on. Their codename Morrison. I've had that. I can confirm that is indeed the codename for them. I've had that codename for quite a while. But whether they show up in October is something we'll have to wait and see because this is the kind of thing. It's an accessory. It can show up whenever Microsoft deems it ready to show up, and it doesn't have to be tied to a specific hardware launch. But it would be nice to see them show up at this event as well. Since last year was the Surface headphones, it would make sense as an evolution to say, right, we've got the Surface headphones this year. The Surface Buds, which will essentially just be in-ear versions of the Surface headphones. They'll be smaller, just sort of like the AirPods or the Galaxy Buds. They sort of sit inside your ears and stuff instead of covering them like cups.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one because it's sort of like I'm not completely sold on the earbud thing. I will say AirPods are intriguing. I've never bought them. I have no plans to buy them, but I can tell you they've clearly caught on. Like,
I'll tell you why they've caught on, and it's only for iPhone users primarily. It's because AirPods, the way they pair and just work is almost magical. You don't even have to think about it. It's like there's no such thing as like pressing and holding this button to pair. It's like you just open them and your iPhone knows they're yours. And
it gets around Bluetooth, which Bluetooth is cool because it's universal, but Bluetooth also kind of sucks. Like, I mean, it's gotten better. Bluetooth 5 is actually pretty nice, but yeah, I mean, what Apple benefits from is those things have its own processor that they custom made, and it's the same reason why Apple Watch works so well. Yeah. Now, the problem there, of course, is Microsoft can't do that. So it's like, so what are we talking about here? This is just going to be a pair of fancy Bluetooth headphones. So the question for me is, okay, so, and I don't doubt this Surface team could innovate on this. Surface headphones, despite some of its limitations, I still think have the best ergonomics out of any headphones on the market. Those dial headphone things are brilliant, and the touch things work well too. And you see bits of that. The Sony headphones have touch as well. But Surface headphones ergonomically, just like Surface laptop ergonomically, are perfect. So I am curious if these things kind of look cool and do something that the other ones don't. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to take a little bit more convincing for me to adopt these. But if they get really good battery life, have a cool thing, and they're small, I'll give them a shot.
Yeah, I would. I like the Surface headphones for travel. If I'm getting on a plane, the Surface headphones are my headphones that I use. But when I'm just going like popping to the shops or the store, or going out, going on a walk or something, I find the Surface headphones to be too big, and I would much prefer just in ear like earbuds for that instead. So it's nice to hear that, or to know that Microsoft is working on that. Hopefully we see that in October. The other thing we're not too sure about, as it's possible, but we've not heard any confirmation that it will show up in October, is a successor to the Surface Go. Now, the problem with this is that what would be inside it? It can't be an HCX. So a lot of people say the Surface Go should be an HCX device, and on the surface that sounds right, but if you dig into it a little deeper, the HCX is a flagship tier ARM processor, and the Surface Go is not supposed to be a flagship tier device. It's supposed to be the low end cheaper hardware, and an HCX I don't think you can get on a 399 device. The 7CX, which is still rumored at this point, I don't think they've announced it officially, but the Snapdragon 7CX may make more sense for the Surface Go, but that hasn't been announced yet. So,
although again, throwing the we have no idea. I don't know, Qualcomm, and I'm not, like giving a hint here, but Qualcomm could absolutely go on stage with Microsoft and be like, "Hey, here's our new 7CX chip."
That's very true.
That could totally happen. So
that'd be cool to see. But yeah, so Surface Go seems less likely, although it has been over a year since it was since the first one launched. So we're technically overdue for a refresh, but I guess we'll see. It might make more sense to refresh that in the spring of next year alongside another device, perhaps. Centaurus is the one everybody's mostly been waiting for and is excited about. We don't know if this is going to show up at this event. It's possible. Then again, it's also not. It might not. And there's reasons for and against it showing up in October. The reasons for is that Microsoft sort of showed it off to employees earlier this year, which they never do. They showed it off to a whole bunch of people outside of the Surface team, which is very weird. It's like they're sort of hyping it up, and them showing it off to employees tells me that they want to get this announced sooner rather than later. But the reasons against it is that Windows Lite still isn't ready, and it won't be until summertime 2020, I believe, or spring, summertime. The hardware, I believe, is more or less ready. So perhaps they could do a sort of tease at the end of the event where they're like, we're also working on another thing that we'll tell you more about next year. And they can sort of do like a quick promo of this sort of shadowy device that has two screens and whatnot, but not talk about Windows Lite and then actually unveil the device fully in the spring of next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can totally envision like a one more thing. Like, they announce all the other stuff and then he comes back on stage. And he talks about, Panos here talks about something about computer, future computing. And then the lights go dark and they roll a sizzler reel and they show this thing. And, and then he comes on stage, he holds it up. Here it is. Mm-hmm. And then we don't get to touch it later. Or it'll be under glass case, or The Verge, and only The Verge will get a hands-on, 6-hour review with it. Yeah. It'll be something like that. And then, they'll save it for coming next year or something like that. Yeah. I would love to see that. That would definitely build hype. You do risk a little bit about cannibalizing, like, I was going to get a Surface Pro, but...
Well, I think, I don't know, because I think the Surface dual screen, the Centaurus device, I don't think it's going to compete with the Surface Pro. I think it's going to be its own product market, where if you want a Surface Pro, this new device isn't going to deter you from getting one. This is going to be for a new audience who look at it and go, that's actually something I could take advantage of. Because I don't think people were looking at the Microsoft Courier when that was sort of leaking back in 2010 and thinking, I'll get this instead of a laptop. It's like, no, I don't think people were looking at it like that. I think they were looking at it as a new category of devices, and I think the same could happen for Centaurus as well. But what I do know for definite is that it will not be launching this year. So even if they do announce it in October, you will not be able to buy one until next year at the earliest, because Windows Lite isn't ready. The operating system, the software it runs, isn't going to start shipping until next year, so they can't start selling it to you. So that's why we're not too sure about an announcement in October. It's possible they could do a sort of tease And they could even, I mean, fingers crossed, of course, they could even just go all out and actually start talking about Windows Lite and their plans around it and be like, so this is the thing we're doing. It's coming next year. Here's the operating system. Here's what it looks like. Here's the goals, etc., etc. But I think that's going a bit too far for this event. I think Windows Lite is a spring next year thing.
Yeah. I'd still like for them to tease it, though.
Yeah,
I think they need to get into this.
I'd love a tease of some kind at the end. In fact, I think I'd prefer a tease more than a full-blown announcement.
Yeah, either or. Just, I mean, Samsung did this. They showed off their foldable kind of,
Yeah,
on stage. They held it and stuff like that. Like, build hype out for this stuff. Why not, right? They're actually committed to releasing this thing. Show the sizzle reel. Have Panos hold it in his hands. We'll all go crazy over it.
Yeah.
And then
it'll be like the Surface Book announcement again. It would be like, oh, what is this crazy contraption of a device?
Yeah, and then just talk about that and how and we'll have more information and spring next year at Build, or whatever. I think that'd be fun. This could be, and we've been saying for a while. We've heard a few months ago, like up to 5 devices. That this could be the biggest Surface event since 2015, or I should say hardware events. Because 2015, that's when Lumia 950, Lumia 950 XL. There's also the Lumia, so the 640, no, 650, I think was also.
No, it's the 550.
Oh, the 550 was also there.
That announcement makes me laugh every time I see it. It's like, oh, by the way, this thing. And move on to something else.
Yeah, I wrote an article. There's a famous article I wrote that it's like Panos was basically not excited about these phones. He was like, all right, here are these things. I had nothing to do with them, but you can go buy them. But there was also the Microsoft Bands 2 that came out. And then, of course, there was Surface Book. That was the first time. There was a new Surface Pro that was coming out. So that was like a massive event. That's where we're all like, oh, yeah, Microsoft's all in it. We're walking out with, every Surface device. And, since then, it's been, this gets updated here. It is interesting to update the Surface Pro only because, for one, we did hear that was going to be like a massive revision, which made sense. They've done 3 at the current, same scheme, and the idea was, the next one's going to be kind of a bigger revision for that. But now we're hearing, no, it's going to be a smaller revision. Yeah. It's also weird because it's only a year ago Surface Pro 6 was announced. So a year, but Microsoft has done this before. They've announced replacements.
You know what I think? I think the reason they did a Surface Pro 6 when they did and plan to refresh it so soon is because they were expecting to have the sort of major refresh for the Surface Pro, which has the rumored redesign and whatnot. But then that was delayed once again. So now this year's Surface Pro 7 will just be another minor spec bump, more or less. And it's going to seem like, But you've got to think this device should be a sort of a refresh of the Surface Pro line, but it isn't, unfortunately.
I also still say that I don't know what major refresh you could do to the Surface Pro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just thinner bezels and that.
Yeah, I mean, and does that constitute major, right? If they go our bezels now are, because HP does this too, and Dell, they're like, this your Spectre's bezels are 12% thinner, but they don't make a big hoo-ha over it. They're like, it's thinner. We didn't bore,
Yeah.
So I could totally see Microsoft doing that too. Yeah, I'm not really sure. And for me, the Surface Pro is sort of done as a device, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean it's a pretty perfect form factor. So I'm not sure what else they can do for it.
So moving on to things we're not expecting at the event, a Surface Studio 3 is very unlikely because the Surface Studio 2 came out less than a year ago at this point. By the time this event rolls around, it will be around about a year. So I think it'd be too soon to see a refresh of the Surface Studio. I think the earliest we'll see any new updates to the Studio line will be spring next year, or the summer, or maybe even the fall next year. They might be on a 2-year cadence. And then there's also going to be no Andromeda, of course. Andromeda isn't a thing that's happening. And if you want Andromeda to happen, buy Centaurus a lot. That's basically that's my advice to you. Make Windows Lite and the dual screen market a success on the larger side of things, and then perhaps you'll get Andromeda. That's basically
buy it, and it'd be like, what would be awesome if this was smaller.
Yeah, buy it and buy 2. If everyone buys 2, we will have Andromeda in 2 years. Anyway, no Andromeda at this event. And someone's asking about Microsoft Band. No, I don't think we're going to see any wearable. I would be surprised if we saw a wearable. Outside of the earphones, of course.
As someone mentioned, Microsoft Health is all but shut down at this point, which would be kind of weird.
Well, they partnered with Samsung. Maybe they could partner with Fitbit. That'd be nice. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
That would be the smart way to do it, in my opinion, right? But, I don't see that happening either. Fitbit is in a not a precarious situation, but they're quarter to quarter. They got to be careful. They're still trying to figure out their area. Do they want to be high end? Do they want to be mid range? All that. I'm still. This is what I do for this site, by the way. This is me wearing 2 fitness bands. If you're watching this, so this is the Huawei, or sorry, Honor 5 bands, which I've talked about, I think, in the last podcast. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as a Fitbit, but it's good enough in some ways. Although the step counting is a little bit off. But it's $38.
Yeah.
But then again, if Huawei can do health and fitness and tracking and all this kind of stuff, I don't see necessarily why Microsoft would need necessarily Microsoft Health, this whole thing, this whole other infrastructure to do that as well. Like Huawei doesn't have that. They do a lot of their own R&D and everything like that. But this thing has an SpO2 sensor in it, which the Charge 3 has too, so it detects your blood oxygen levels. But the Fitbit hasn't turned theirs on yet, so it doesn't do anything, where Huawei's does. And I feel like a lot of this tech, I feel like the Surface team, if they wanted to, could still do a wearable with heart rate counter, breathing, all that. They could just take all that technology they already had and just reuse it. I don't see that necessarily as a sign that they could never go back into wearables. But it is important to point out, as you have, that we're not hearing any rumors of a wearable. But we also know from past Surface events that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because we absolutely don't know everything that goes on inside there. So
one other bit of, I guess it's an accessory, I'd class it under. One other thing I've heard that may show up in October, but I'm not going to write about this because I don't really know much about it, is a possible refresh to the Surface Dock. Now, the Surface Dock hasn't been updated since 2015, I believe, which is quite a while. And I have been hearing that they are working on a new dock that has a few new capabilities and stuff like. No, I probably shouldn't go into it now because I don't know what I can and can't say. But a refresh to the Surface Dock could be on the cards, which would make sense if they're dropping the Surface Connect port here and there, because I assume they'd want a USB-C dock instead, since all of them will have USB-C now, and that makes more sense to implement. And plus, I believe the 3 or 4 years that Satya Nadella said that I can't remember how this went, but I remember when the Surface Pro 4 came out, I think it was, or the Surface Pro 3, they released that dock, which was it was a sit-up dock. You could dock the screen into it and stuff. And when the Surface Pro 4 came out, there was sort of confusion over whether or not newer Surface Pros would support that old Surface 3 dock, especially if businesses spent, hundreds and thousands on buying hundreds of them for their employees. And Microsoft committed to, I think, 3 or 4 years of supporting that dock with newer Surface hardware. And that time is now up. So a new one can show up, and that will be quite exciting. Other small things we are, sort of expecting to see or hear about at least is a launch date for HoloLens 2 and the Surface Hub 2S, although I think the Surface Hub 2S has already started to ship. A HoloLens 2 launch date will likely be there as well. And that's basically it. That's basically everything we think we know about the Microsoft hardware event. No Xbox stuff, I don't think.
And no Surface display, right?
Yeah, we've not. I mean, we know. I think Brad Sams has written about this. That there is one in the works, but we don't know a time frame for it. I mean, it could show up in October, but I think it would make more sense to announce that alongside a new Surface Studio, because then you can do the Surface Studio unveiling and go, oh, by the way,
if you don't want this PC part,
yeah, you could do a Surface Book unveiling and be like, oh, by the way, this comes off, and then it's like an actual just monitor. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, either way, October 2nd, we'll be live New York City. As for people asking, will we be live tweeting in, all this kind of stuff? We'll do live coverage.
Here's the one thing I want to say about that. As interestingly, the last few Surface events, I believe it's the last 3, haven't been live streamed, and that should tell you everything about how Microsoft perceives those events and how big those hardware refreshes were. We don't know yet if this one's being streamed. If it is being streamed, then it's time to start getting excited. If it's not being streamed, then everybody should just calm the hell down.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So there's the chance that it will be live streamed. We'll have to wait and find that out once the actual invites and all the media guidance comes out. That said, we'll probably get chat rooms going on the site. Well, we usually do it 2 ways. We'll have Zach and I will be in one room, and we'll be live sharing images and everything like that. Then we'll have a chat room for you guys where we can all hang out, discuss things, and talk about how awesome or disappointing it is. For me, what I'm most excited about, if they do an ARM device, I just really want a Surface ARM device because I'm so hooked on ARM. I still got to review the MateBook E, which you could see on Windows Central. I did a quick hands-on with it recently, but I just love the idea of ARM. And if there's a Surface Pro with ARM, yeah, I'm hooked. That's my device. That's the device I'm going to carry around with me all the time. I'm very, very excited about it. It's also going to be an 8CX, which I haven't used personally, at least for an extended duration. But I'm really excited to see the performance of it, as well as everything else with Microsoft's hardware. The idea of a foldable or dual screen Centaurus is really intriguing because we've seen concept images, we've seen patents, and we kind of have a rough idea, but it's still one of those devices until we see in action what it's like and how heavy it is and how it works. It's just a lot of things we just don't know about it. And I'm really intrigued by the idea. And we haven't seen Windows Lite. I mean, we've seen screenshots, you've posted things, Brad Samson posted. We've seen concepts of what it looks like. But again, we haven't seen it in action. A lot of questions there regarding Win32 apps and how those will run, performance, battery life, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really intrigued. If that stuff comes out, I'm going to be just really, really happy. Surface Book 3. Listen, I love Surface Book. It's exciting. I'll be very excited to try it, but I feel like that's going to be sort of a moderate refresh. I feel like they're going to keep a lot of the same form factor. They'll just upgrade the internals, which is probably fine. Make improvements here, and they always do important improvements. And I would totally love it. I don't know about a Surface Go. We haven't heard
I
it.
think Surface Go. I don't think it's going to happen in October.
Yeah, but I'm with, I could tell a lot of our audience here, the idea of a Surface Go, make the bezels a little bit thinner, clean up the hardware just a tad. It's otherwise really good hardware. And throw in an ARM processor or something in there with LTE, and it's
that's the perfect Windows tablet.
Yeah,
that's
that's a pretty cool looking device. Yeah, so I was asking about RTX. Yeah, it would be weird if they do a Surface Book 3 without RTX, because RTX, it's one of the rare NVIDIA GPU upgrades that doesn't require a substantial change in your thermals. It actually requires 10 watts less power than the GTX series, which, as I pointed out in previous podcasts, is really good because the Surface Book 2's Connect charger can only do 103 watts. And in theory, the entire drain of the GPU and CPU when maxed out performance on Surface Book 2 is just slightly greater than that, which means if you're totally doing gaming for 2 hours, you could in theory begin to drain the battery. If you gain back that 10 watts with an RTX series, you're actually golden, right? So there's actually a lot of improvements. So it would be weird. I don't see any physical constraints to Surface Book 2 that would prevent them from using RTX. That said, RTX, it's nice. It'll be interesting how much of a game changer it is. I don't know. I think it's 10 or 30% improvement in just general performance.
Yeah. A few people in the comments are asking, maybe the 8CX Surface you've heard about is Centaurus. No, as far as I'm aware, Centaurus is an Intel device. It might even be Lakefield, which I don't think is coming till next year, which would make sense since Centaurus isn't coming till next year anyway. The reason for this, as far as I'm aware, is one, they've been working on it for a while, and they were working with Intel for a while on it anyway. And two, Windows Lite, when it launches, won't be compatible with Windows on ARM, or it won't be compatible with ARM chips. As far as I'm aware, now I don't know, I haven't dug into this too much, but I have heard whispers that the reason for this is the actual operating system is obviously compatible with ARM. Windows is compatible with ARM, but the layer that allows you to run Win32 programs on Windows Lite, that work that's already available on Windows 10 on ARM, x86 Win32 to be specific, the work that's already present on Windows 10 on ARM today hasn't yet been ported to Windows Core OS, which is also why the HoloLens 2, which we've all talked about before, should eventually be able to run Win32 programs, but can't do it currently. It's because that layer that allows them to run the Win32 x86 programs isn't there yet. But
come on, Microsoft.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. But Centaurus being an Intel device, I don't think it's that huge of a deal. It makes sense for the first one to be an Intel one, especially if the because Win32 on Windows Lite is already going to be sort of emulated to begin with, and you don't want to add an extra layer of emulation into that to confuse things and make things less stable. So if you start off with one level of emulation, and then once we've got that nailed, then we can start off with the emulating the x86 stuff on top of ARM in addition to that. But yeah, that's why Centaurus is Intel, as far as I'm aware.
So I was asking quickly, what I like about ARM, other than battery life, including connected standby and always on. Yeah, I mean, it really it doesn't feel that different. It's just the thing about ARM is it is the instant on ability. The fact that it's just you just click that button and it just turns on like your smartphone. Also, the idea that it comes with LTE is just cool. I really love devices with LTE. I'm also in the minority though. I've talked about this recently that when I talk to OEMs, that in the United States at least, the demand for LTE in laptops has been lower than what they expected and were hoping for. And part of that's because data here is expensive and Wi-Fi is ubiquitous. Now, I've argued, and Microsoft argues, and it's the reality that enterprise cares about LTE because it's simply a much more secure system than jumping on Wi-Fi. When you're on Wi-Fi, it's easy to sniff packets and steal data. LTE is actually very secure, so you start to see it more in other devices. In fact, when we talk about a laptop, not this coming week, but the week after, that I actually have, I'm very excited about. None of you will buy it. It's not for consumers. I'll just say that, give you a kind of a hint here, but it has LTE in it, and governments kind of use it and stuff like that. But so LTE is super important here. But I just like the battery life is also a little bit better. Other than that, though, it's not a huge difference, right? I mean, you're going to, and you're right. Intel's 10th gen does, in my opinion, fix a lot of this stuff. And then it comes down to price. I'd also say ARM, though, I think is still smaller in terms of the chipset itself, which is significant because that means you can put in a bigger battery, you can make the device thinner. So Qualcomm still has the advantage where manufacturers can still do a little bit more crazy hardware designs with it versus Intel. 10th gen is allowing that. That's what the XPS 13 2-in-1 is going to be like. That's why it's so crazy thin and light and looks awesome. So there's that. So I was asking likelihood of a Surface Book with LTE. Again, I don't expect that. I would love it. I've mentioned it to them, but there's two reasons I can think of. One, I already mentioned, demand. I don't think a lot of Surface Book 2 users are demanding it as much as I would totally love it. The other one is the hardware. I mentioned this before. The reason why Dell hasn't done LTE in its XPS line is because of the metal covers. They need to completely redesign how to work those antennas in there. It's a significant hardware and engineering challenge that needs to be done. That's why it took Surface Pro so long to get it, and that's why it has a special ceramic antenna area. I wrote an article about it. You can go check it out. That's not saying that they can't do it, but it's not as easy just slapping in a modem and running an antenna and be like, there, LTE. It's actually hard. Dell themselves say they do want to put LTE in the XPS line eventually, but they're going to have to redesign the XPS line, and it's a significant challenge for them. Which also brings up, someone mentioned about Surface Pro not changing its design, kind of like the iPhone, all this kind of stuff. I want to say, listen, sometimes you land on a design that works so well, you don't need to necessarily change it just for the sake of change. And the Surface team absolutely believes in this. This is one they have criticized HP a little bit recently. I feel like they're going a little crazy with the Spectre series. Every year they're like completely new design, where I'm like, last year's design was totally fine. Dell, on the other hand, is very conservative. They did the XPS line, the XPS 15, the 13. They're like, this is awesome, and we're going to stick with it for a couple of years. And I get it's boring reporting to be like, the XPS 13 7590, which just came out, looks exactly like the 70, or is it 74 or 7390? 7390 looks exactly like the 7380. I get that. But when you pick up an XPS 13, that laptop absolutely still feels like unlike anything out there. And I feel the same way with Surface Pro. Like, there's still no other device that's out there like that that's as good. And so I don't think you need to change it just to be like, we got to make it flashy for 2019. Otherwise, people aren't going to buy it. People buy the Surface Pro because if you never had one and you walk into a store and you see a brand new Surface Pro, I guarantee you're going to be pretty much in love with that hardware and that design. Like, it doesn't need to radically change. Whew, okay. Man, I got sleep. I got sleep last night.
Yeah, look at that. And with that, I think that rounds up our sort of coverage of this speculation regarding the Surface event. I'm excited. Hopefully, there's lots of fun, good things there.
And Zach gets to see New York City, which
Yes,
means,
I
which
do.
anytime Zach comes to the United States, I like, let me show you America. Like last time I took him to Cheesecake Factory and he
Yes,
was, he
stunned.
tapped out on the appetizers.
The appetizer's a full-size meal. What are you guys
I
doing over
know.
there? It's crazy.
It's awesome. So, oh, then I took you to, well, no, Shake Shack last time, right?
Yes, which apparently is in the UK anyway. I just
Yeah,
didn't know.
apparently everybody told you, oh, Zach, you have one down the street from you. And you're
It's
like,
like,
really? I
what?
don't get out.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah,
but
and
what's it?
more authentic American experiences are around the corner for me. I'm very excited.
Well, now you can get New York pizza. We'll have to find you some New
Yes, I'm
York pizza.
excited about this.
It's,
Shall we move on to our 19H2, 20H1 segment of the
I
show?
suppose so. That's for 46 minutes
Yeah,
instead.
this is harder. But this is going to
All
be a
right,
longer episode than usual, guys. I don't know if you've noticed.
I'll shut
So
up.
this week, there's been usual insider builds for both 19H2 and 20H1. We'll start off with the 19H2 stuff because, chronologically it makes sense. Earlier this week, I believe, Microsoft announced or released, I guess, a new 19H2 build, this time in the release preview ring. So the slow ring didn't get this build this time, and it is a 19H2 build, but this one went straight to the release preview ring. And the reason for this is Microsoft says they're now beginning to test the throttled approach and the system they intend to use to roll out 19H2 to customers when 19H2 is ready to go. But there's a difference to this. This one is now showing up as an actual feature update and increments the full build number by 1. Now, we've talked about this in the past. The 19H2 builds up until this week were just incrementing the minor build number, and that's sort of the patch number you see at the end of the build number 18362.xxx. 19H2 was just a variation of that. But now they've actually incremented the full build by 1 from 18362 to 18363. Which is even more like the old school service packs. The service packs of Windows 7 and Windows Vista and I believe Windows XP, maybe not Windows XP, but Windows Vista 7, they incremented the build number by 1. Windows 7 SP1 was build 7601. And now 19H2 is incrementing the build by 1 from 362 to 363. And the reason they're doing this, they say, so they can differentiate this update as a feature update. A new feature update is usually a newer full build. And that's how Windows Update sees these and displays them. When Microsoft announced earlier this year, their changes to how users receive feature updates, they said, we're no longer going to force these feature updates on you. There's now going to be this little sort of window in the Windows Update area where you can manually press download and install. For 19H2 to show up in that area, it needs to increment the full build, and that's what this update is testing this week. Now, Microsoft released a clarification about this yesterday, which sort of explains it in a little more detail about how this differs from 19H1. And I'm just going to read it word for word because I'm not going to try and decipher this. 19H1 and 19H2 share the same servicing content. That means they share the same cumulative update package. For the small subset of Windows insiders in the release preview who were given the option to install 19H2, an enablement package is downloaded from Windows Update that turns on the 19H2 features. This changes the build number from the OS for the OS from 19H1 build 18362 to 19H2 build 18363. Because they're using the same servicing content, the build revision number, the number that comes after the dots, will always match between 19H1 and 19H2. As we continue to test our servicing packages in the release preview ring, insiders on 19H1 and 19H2 will get a single cumulative update with the same fixes. So that's for 19H2. No new features. I think 19H2's feature complete at this point, if you can call it feature complete. A few changes here and there, the notification stuff, the ability to type into the calendar flyout to add things to your calendar, and there's something else as well that I can't remember. It's minor stuff anyway. So 19H2 coming in September, more or less, pretty much done. Moving on to 20H1. Quite a big build this week, actually. Starting off with a new tablet experience for 2-in-1 convertibles. Now, when I first read this, I was like, oh my god, they're actually updating tablet mode. This is incredible. But upon further inspection, that's not the case. So what Microsoft is doing here is they are updating the desktop mode to improve it for touch-based devices. So if you are using a convertible, for example, such as the Surface Pro or a HP Spectre or a Lenovo Yoga Book of some kind, when you flip the keyboard back now, instead of being thrown into tablet mode, what happens is this desktop mode just sort of shifts around a little bit and makes the hitboxes bigger. and makes the keyboard come up automatically when you tap into a text field, which surprisingly wasn't already the case before, but it is now. And that's basically it. You will no longer be asked to enter tablet mode or automatically be thrown into it. You'll just have desktop mode sort of adjust itself ever so slightly. It will collapse things like the search bar and make running apps, the icons bigger so you can tap on them easier. And that's basically... Oh, File Explorer also gets larger hitboxes as well. But that's basically it. And that's their improvements to the desktop mode for convertibles when using it in the tablet posture, as they refer to it as. So it's minor improvements here and there, but I guess a nice change for convertibles. Unfortunately, no changes to tablet mode. And as Dan did a nice write-up earlier today talking a little bit about that. Do you want to go into that now?
As I just choke. Swallowing. Still figuring it out. Yeah, so, I mean, we don't have solid info on this, but it seems to me, and don't follow me on this logic here, that tablet mode in current Windows 10 is going to be phased out. Yeah. And the fact we haven't seen, despite our false, thoughts yesterday, that we haven't seen any improvements to tablet mode in like years, despite people clamoring for it. But while everybody was clamoring for tablet mode to be improved, the tablet market has gone down. And I posted in that article a link to IDC's numbers showing that this is the second quarter in a row tablet market share and sales going down, which is significant. Apple still sells a lot of iPads, but what's interesting about the iPads is Apple's been trying to push everybody towards iPad Pro, which is, we all know, iPad Pro is basically becoming Surface Pro, right? It's becoming this PC-ish replacement. And there just aren't a lot of pure tablets anymore. Android has given up on pure tablets, except for Samsung, who once in a while keeps doing them. And the reason's obvious, right? Laptops have gotten very thin. I keep saying, if you ever want a laptop, like today's laptops are so damn good. Like these are the laptops we've all been dreaming of, with 10-hour battery life and thin and light and 4K displays. And they also look at smartphones. We went from smartphones getting as small and thin and light as possible to they're big as possible. You have a Note 10. That's not an insignificant device in terms of size. I have still in front of me my Mate 20X. The biggest phone in the world, 7.2 inches. Like if I carry this thing, like there's no reason to have a tablet, right? So tablets market share is going down and interest in them is going down. And there are literally no Windows 10 pure tablets anymore. Like you used to be able to buy like a Toshiba, I still have it, Toshiba 8-inch tablet. Lenovo had one too. So those don't exist. So now the motivation to make a pure tablet experience in Windows 10 is kind of gone. And I use 2-in-1s all the time. I listed a bunch in the article. Yoga C930, HP EliteBook 1040 G5 is awesome. The new MateBook E that I'm using with ARM, Samsung Galaxy Book 2, Surface Pro, of course. And how I always use these devices as convertibles is I simply flip the keyboard around and then I watch video way closer. It's awesome when I'm on an airplane, I'm on the couch, or I want to share someone with something. Like and that's how I think most people are using it. Or if you're going to ink and you want to like change your writing angle. And so I never switch to tablet mode. In fact, I hate it when that screen pops up like, hey, do you want it? I'm like, no, just stick to desktop. And because I just haven't seen, it's not easier for me to use tablet mode. I just stick to desktop. So the idea of them improving the touch experience in desktop actually is intriguing to me, because I feel like that's how most people are using their devices. And I guarantee that they have telemetry on this. They see how many people are using tablet mode. I guarantee you it's pretty low. Just like the amount of people who are actually using the start menu and customizing it is also low. Now, I know some of you are like flipping tables. I use it every day. I have a lot of people telling me that's the only way they use their devices, and I get it. But I really do think you're in a minority here. I don't think that's where the market's going. That said, I don't think this concept of a touch UI and tablet-friendly experience is completely dead. I just think we've been shoehorning Windows 10 to try to do that for so long, and it's just not. Windows 10 is a desktop OS. It just is. And they've made a lot of strides to make it better. I think these are improvements to make it work better with 2-in-1s, which are the predominant devices on the market today. But I think what people want is Windows Lite. And I think Windows Lite as a UI and a user experience is built from the ground up to match with inking, foldable devices, dual screen devices, and touch first devices. Like, I feel like they really are building it around that idea. If they don't, I'll be really shocked. Of course, it's Microsoft, but so who knows? But I really feel like that's where they're going to position this, where maybe we'll see a resurgence of like 8-inch devices or 10-inch devices and things like Surface Go. And I think Windows Lite is going to give you that, what you want, touch-friendly, everything. It won't be Windows 8 with the giant screen of live tiles, but it's going to be still something built around the idea of using touch first, pen first as the first modality. I think this idea of keeping Windows 10, just acknowledging the reality that Windows 10 is primarily a desktop OS. And when people do use it on a convertible, they just want the current setup just touch friendly. And that's what this delivers. So I'm on board with this. It's up there with the live tiles. We posted today or tweeted today about this concept of what this looks like. I'm ready for it. Live tiles, they look old and dated to me now. And you can blame that on Microsoft. Well, they haven't updated them in like forever. True. But I just think conceptually we've moved on towards that from that. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with what if you're thinking there about Windows Lite becoming the new sort of space for Windows on tablets and for Windows just being the sort of desktop convertible. I mean, Windows Lite will run on convertibles, laptops as well, of course. But yeah, it makes more sense for Windows 10 itself to sort of cater to the desktop / keyboard mouse input, and then every now and then when you are flipping your convertible into a tablet, it just sort of improve that desktop mode. Whereas Windows Lite will have obviously a desktop mode as well, but it has from the ground up a tablet experience that's sort of native and feels fluid and fast as well. That can compete with iOS, hopefully. But yeah,
and I maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Like, they might not actually pull out tablet mode. Like I said, maybe they're going to get rid of it, all this. They might not do that. Microsoft is kind of conservative here. They just might kind of bury it, right?
Yeah.
Or
like they
might not
my
make
people. My people's still in Windows, by the way.
Yeah, right. So, it may be years before this thing like actually disappears. So if you do have a Surface Pro, I don't think they're going to update it and just that feature's gone and you're done. So maybe I jumped the gun a little bit there, or I should have phrased it differently. You'll probably still have the experience. I just don't think they're going to make that the default action anymore. That when you rotate the keyboard back, it's going to do you want to go to tablet mode? It's like no. I think it's going to just eventually go away from that.
Someone's asking, if tablets are dying, why Windows Lite? Well, Windows Lite's more than just... It's a Chrome OS competitor. Windows Lite will run on laptops and convertibles, but it will just have a UI experience that's actually more suited to tablets than Windows 10 currently has today. I'm not saying we're going to see, hundreds of new just pure tablets launch with Windows Lite when Windows Lite's ready. I'm just saying it will have a UX that's more catered to that device type if OEMs want to build them.
I think you really need to look at Windows Lite like being like a cross between Chrome OS, iOS, and Windows. Where you do have, Microsoft's always been about touch modality. Like, hey, listen, you can criticize Windows 10 all you want with touch, but it's still pretty good for touch. It's not easy. It's better than Chrome OS in a lot of ways still. And they've done a lot of work there. But the fact is Windows 10 is an old legacy operating system. It can only do so much. It's not really, and they risk changing the UX so much to make it like a touch tablet experience that they alienate the 90% of people using Windows 10 not that way. But I think Windows Lite opens the door. Hey, if these devices kind of come back, they want to go down to smaller form factors, basically anything below the 10-inch realm. I think Windows Lite starts to make a lot of sense, or even at a 12-inch, right? Where current Windows 10, man, you put Windows 10 on an 8-inch device, it's not a cool experience. And they tried it, right? I mean, we saw this. This is what Toshiba did, Lenovo did. We all had these devices, and they were not like cool. So how do you solve an operating system below 12-inch, right? And that's where I think Windows Lite
worked with Windows 8, but by the time these tablets started coming to the market, Windows 10 was just around the corner. I mean, I remember buying Windows 8.1 8-inch tablets on the box saying free upgrade to Windows 10. That was at the point where Windows 10 had already been announced, it was coming soon, and these devices were advertising the fact Windows 10's on the way. But I think Windows 10 killed most of that because the experience isn't great.
Yeah, and then the problem with running full Windows and an 8-inch tablet was you always had an add-on processor, and because you're dealing with this old legacy operating system with this teeny processor, it just wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Now, someone's saying Chrome OS was inspired by Windows in many ways. Totally true, but they had the benefit of making that OS from the ground up recently. They don't have any legacy baggage with them, so that's why Chrome OS boots instantly, does instant updates, and it's just more dynamic than Windows. So that's all Windows Lite is now, is their ability to sort of follow that model. That said, Google's had challenges. Look at the recent reviews for, was it the Pixel Slate that ran on Atom processors and low end, or is there Celeron processors in the low end core? People are like, it's jaggy, it has performance issues. So it's like, this stuff is not trivial. Google didn't just walk into this and was like, we nailed it. In fact, Google almost never walks into anything and does that. It just nails it. They take like 10 versions before it gets good. That's only if they didn't cancel it at some point. So this stuff is not trivial.
Yeah. So the other notable change in this latest build, did I mention the build number? 18970, is the new option to cloud download Windows and recovering your PC. Now, Microsoft says they've added this because some users were asking for it because it's faster to download than it is to use the already existing reinstallation files on your hard drive. Because Windows, every version of Windows 10 comes with the ability to sort of reuse the Windows files to reset your PC, and that doesn't require download. What it does is just it sees your Windows OS and just takes those files, refreshes them, and sets it up as a brand new clean install. But now you can download the Windows files from the cloud anyway. So if you have a device, if you're in an area where apparently downloading is faster than just using what's already on locally, then you can now do that as well. I think this is more of a Windows Lite thing though. Although it is on desktop, I assume this is there for Windows core devices. It makes,
and that's something Mac OS has had for years.
Yes, it is. When Mac OS has been able to do this, this will only really be useful to me if you can completely recover a PC that you can't boot into Windows anymore, because I think so far this only works if you can go into settings. If this comes to devices where you power it on and the operating system isn't there anymore, and you can do this with like the UEFI, that would be very useful.
This is a very good point, because I believe on Mac OS, like you can do this with the corrupted, do a full install and recover everything. But if you have to go into settings and do this,
it's like, I can't get into settings, it's broken.
Yeah, then you gotta go and do the SEO search for, how do I get into safe mode again? Yeah. Wait, is safe mode still a thing?
Mode? Yeah, is it still a thing? It must be.
It's still a thing.
Windows is old. I can't wait for
and you can boot into safe mode with networking or without networking.
It's up to drivers, you. No drivers.
Do you want to load the drivers or no drivers? Right, exactly.
All right, finally, since we are already running over an hour, let's talk about dark mode, because everybody likes dark mode. Microsoft made a big deal this week about dark mode coming to Microsoft 365 online and on iOS, and not Android for some reason. Android's getting it later, although with one exception. Outlook is getting dark mode on both Android and iOS. Me and Dan have sort of been toying around this for a little while. We had early access, but everyone, all the other Office apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive, To Do, will be getting dark modes on iOS 13 when that launches. But Android is being left in the cold for some reason, which makes me sad. Microsoft 365 Online, so that's all the online Office apps, OneDrive, Outlook, they're all getting dark modes as well. So if you use the web apps, that's fantastic. But again, nothing for Android. So I'm really sad about that, Dan.
Sorry.
That's basically it. There's not much else to say. What are your thoughts on the new Outlook dark mode on iOS and Android?
It looks great. I'm a big fan of it. Some people feel strongly about dark mode. I'm a big fan of. I kind of like both. Sometimes I do like when companies give you the option, like we can change it for you based on hours or light sensitivity. I'm using a keyboard now called Chroma, Chroma. It's on Android, and it has the ability to switch keyboard from light to dark mode based on the current environment in your room, which I thought is clever, right? So I kind of like that, a little more of a dynamic thing. But I do keep my Outlook in dark mode on Android, and I think it looks really nice. I don't know, still like Outlook. I do find I'm not a hardcore email user. I do find it funny, like some of the complaints I hear, because it's just it doesn't affect me. I'm just like a normal email guy. But I think Outlook's been coming along pretty well, and we'll hear more about, I'm sure, what's coming with Outlook at Ignite, which is typically where we've been hearing a lot about their plans. That happens in November this year. wouldn't be surprised at all that while we're there, we're going to hear some more announcements of stuff that's coming. But as someone who gets to see sometimes the internal change logs to what they do with Outlook, man, writing email apps is not easy. The amount of like changes and fixes and refactoring, and it's kind of mind blowing. I'm kind of glad I don't do any of that. So, but no, it looks good.
Someone's asking, can the cloud download option remove OEM stuff? I believe it does, although don't quote me on that because there was well at one point it didn't. I know the reset this PC option has sometimes not, but I think this might. So give it a go and let us know. I'll try it this weekend and I'll tweet about it and tell you if it works or not. But I think that's pretty much it, Dan.
I believe so. Other than that, go check out my Think Vision M14 review for the market for a portable display. This is a weird market. I know some people are like, why do you need a secondary display? And like, trust me, some people do. It's like, but it's a really cool device. I'm a big fan of it only because it pushes. So every time I've reviewed these so far, they've been all pretty good. Asus had the first one, major one at least out, and then they added a battery to it as an option. And, it was pretty cool. It did its job, but it's not light. It was 3 pounds, but whatever. It's the only thing you can get. And then HP has one, the Elite Display S14, which I also liked, a little bit lighter, a little bit better quality, in my opinion. Now Lenovo stepped in, and they just blew everybody away because this thing is half the weight of everybody else's. It weighs 1.26 pounds, which I think it's like 500 grams. This thing is super light. It's so light. It feels like literally like if you took like the X1 Carbon display and just ripped it off. It feels like a dummy unit. Like there's nothing there. But it's also a really good display. It's 99% sRGB, over 300 nits of brightness. It's matte, which I'm a huge fan of. The Asus is just glossy, and I hate glossy. And it also has 2 Type-C plugs. You can use one for the display to connect into the laptop, but you can also charge through the other one, and it'll also pass through charge, meaning you're powering the display, but then the rest of the charge will also go to the laptop to recharge the laptop. You can also use it on smartphones. So if you have a new Galaxy phone and you want to use DeX mode, you can plug this in. Huawei phones do this as well. Now, smartphones don't have enough power themselves to power the display and charge themselves or power themselves. So you will need to plug in the display as well as the phone. But if you want to do that, that's cool. I think in theory you should be able to connect up to an Xbox. You just need to do an HDMI converter. I'll probably do an article on this, but this is a huge advancement. It also has, everybody else up to this point has done these magnetic covers that wrap around like the iPad does. And it's kind of cool, protects the device, but it's heavy. The magnets add weight to it. And then you have to do the origami thing where you have to fold it, and you get like basically 2 positions, like up and slightly down, right? Lenovo got rid of that. They just have a full-on base with a little hinge, a dual hinge that they use in their Yoga series. And now you can go from -5 to 90 degrees and do whatever you want, which is awesome because it's the way it should be. And then they added a little riser to it. You pop it out the bottom, and it's so you can match your laptop's display height. So it's very even. It's just like they did a lot of clever stuff here. So I feel like it's a big advancement for portable displays. Actually, it's kind of funny because I have this here, which I've been playing around with again, of course. I have stuff like these mini PCs. This is the GPD Win, whatever. But this has Type-C. Like I can plug in this portable display to this thing and have like a kind of like a full-on PC. I could probably do it with. I don't know if I can do it with the Wii. Yeah, I could probably do it with the Wii too. I didn't even try that. So you can do all sorts of cool stuff with these things. It's $250, I think. One from Lenovo. Go check it out. I think it's really cool. Other than that, got a couple of reviews coming out. Headphones next week, XPS 15, all that kind of stuff. And then you and I will be at IFA. I fly out Sunday nights. We'll meet up Monday. That'll be fun. Berlin, Germany. We'll be meeting up with the Microsoft To Do team too. So we're going to hang out with those guys. Hopefully we'll get maybe some exclusive info on stuff they're working on.
I'm looking forward to traversing the Berlin subway.
Yes, yeah, we should just Uber, but we can try the
Oh, we could do
subway.
the subway as well. Yeah, yeah, why not?
Berlin's awesome, so I'm very excited to again visit the city. I'll be there for a week. Not a huge amount of news at IFA. You'll see a few new laptops, of course, and some exciting stuff there. Razer's got some cool stuff that they're going to be announcing, so very excited about that. And I'm rumored to be sitting down with the CEO of Razer, Minling Tang. So if you have questions for him, don't ask why stuff's so expensive, but I'm very excited about that. It's a good opportunity to meet with a lot of people in the industry. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, for my live blogging of that. You can also follow me on Instagram. Same thing, Daniel_Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. We'll also be, of course, posting things to Windows Central. Then we'll do some quick Q&A here with the audience. But if you're listening to this recorded, unfortunately, this is where the podcast ends. If you ever do want to join us live, we are recording Fridays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Mixer.com/Windows Central. We're also broadcast on our YouTube channel at Windows Central there, and you can join in the chats there. As always, we do appreciate you guys tuning in. Let us know how we can improve it and do better, and if we have any questions. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Cool. So yes, we'll hang around and answer some of your questions if you're listening live. Do type them into the chat, and then we will say goodbye properly. Xbox Live is down. Someone's complaining about it. Yes, Xbox Live is down right now. So if you can't get online, that's the reason why.
I should have thanked my cat for not meowing her head off this week.
Well, I heard a couple meows.
She did have a couple meows. That was very tame.
Yeah.
I think her meds are finally working. She's hyperthyroid, so I have to medicate her.
Just saying, I think this is one of the best podcasts in a while. Oh, thanks, Advanced Meta 115. So saying all the other ones aren't good? No, thank you very much. We appreciate the kind comments. We actually had quite a few people listening on YouTube today, more so than usual, up to 350.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then we had the Channel 1 boost as well.
And we did have the Channel 1 boost. I always feel sorry for Channel 1 when they come around to us and we're not talking about Xbox. God, those gamers have to sit through this nonsense for 15 minutes.
Will we review the Bill Gates documentary? Maybe. I don't know.
We'll do riff tracks.
Yes. Yeah, we should do riff tracks. We'll sit there and watch. That'd be awesome, actually. That would be kind of cool. Remember they actually had that feature with Netflix on Xbox 360?
Yeah, that was so cool.
That was cool.
I should bring that back for Scarlet.
Yep. But no.
No
Phil
connect to
care about that stuff.
Yeah, gamers suck, Mixer. You heard it here first. I'm joking.
It's all right. We learned that Phil is a big fan of Rise Against and punk rock music, so that dude goes down as cool in my book.
He's a cool dude.
He is a cool dude.
Finally, one episode where Zach doesn't rant about Windows Core. Didn't I talk about Windows Lite in this podcast? I'm sure. Wait, when do I rant about Windows Core? I talk about it every episode because it's the future. But I don't think I've ranted about it before.
Where is the Bill Gates documentary? We did an article yesterday on it. It'll be on Netflix. I don't know the release date. 20th.
Something like
Thank you. No, September 20th. Thank you, Noble Joey 3.
You said Centaurus will likely be an Intel-based device partly for Win32 support. Does this mean that Windows Core OS devices will support Win32 x86 apps at launch? Yes. Half the reason why Windows Lite isn't here yet is because it needs to run Win32 apps at launch, and that's what will happen. Otherwise, it could have launched a little while ago, I believe, if it didn't have Win32. If Win32 wasn't a thing that they needed.
Someone's asking, do we prefer AMOLED black or dark gray? Yeah, that's an interesting...
It depends on the app for me.
Yeah, a lot of people do have strong opinions on this. Yeah, because the AMOLED black sometimes is a little too black.
Yeah, sometimes it makes things look unfinished. Like the settings app, I think would look better if it was gray instead of black.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, ultimately, I think it should be user choice, but that's kind of a lot of coding, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna probably go with dark gray.
People will hate us for saying that. People are very weird about that. They get very sort of defensive over which one's better.
Well, I always go for the AMOLED dark black option, but then after a while, I'm like, yeah, it's a little too intense.
Someone's saying, do they only answer questions from Mixer? No, I can see both chats. I see YouTube and Mixer chat. So if you, wherever you are, just ask the questions, and we'll see them.
What's going on with the Insider program? It seems recently there's confusion again with the slow release preview rings to 19H2. So, I mean, nothing definitive here to say on it. I'll say that not every decision with the Windows Insider program is necessarily up to them, right? So they have to work with the actual Windows team who's making these releases and wants to do these things, and so they have to react to them. I'm like, for instance, this year's fall update is basically a cumulative update. It's not a big feature pack, right? That was 99% sure not the Windows Insider's decision, right? So they set up this program to do major feature release and testing, and then they're given this new update that's like not that, right? So you can't really, so they have to work with that and try to explain it to people without it being necessarily a policy change. Like, I know a lot of people are saying, well, oh, this is obvious. They're switching to a big little update per year. Like, I don't know if that's the case. Like, I don't think that's been decided. In fact, Zach and I think are both sometimes surprised when we talk to Microsoft about so what about 2 years from now? They're like, don't really know. They do have a game plan and a roadmap and things they want to do, but the idea that they commit to those things, like, oh, this is actually a policy change, is often not the case.
Someone's asking, what's going on with the Pegasus device? So this is interesting because as far as I don't know of any specific Pegasus device that Microsoft is working on. They might be working on one. But as far as I understand it, Pegasus is the code name for the device form factor that Windows Lite will run on.
So it's like a reference design.
Yeah, so OEMs can make a Pegasus device, for example, just as much as they can make a Centaurus device. But Microsoft is working on its own Centaurus device, and we call it Centaurus. But I don't know if they're working on their own Pegasus. I think the Surface Go could fall under being Pegasus. Surface Go 2, if it does run Windows Lite, of course, could be a Pegasus device. But I don't know if there's a specific Pegasus device that Microsoft is working on.
Yeah, I was going to say something like the Snapdragon 835 Windows 10 and ARM devices were reference devices. That's why the Lenovo and HP one looked very similar. But those were Qualcomm reference. Well, I should say it was, I think, a partnership with Qualcomm and Microsoft for those.
Yeah. Also, remember, Pegasus is what refers to Windows Lite on those devices. So the Windows Lite experience, when it's sort of more desktop oriented or like keyboard and mouse orientated, that's Pegasus. And then Centaurus is the dual screen foldable experience. Why do my camera keeps like just defocusing?
You guys know anything about this new Surface device referred to as OEM TX product name EV2 Lite LTE? No.
Maybe next week. But otherwise, no.
Is there any indication that the Your app will support RCS in the future? I don't know. I imagine that's like something they're aware of and would like to do.
I mean, I don't see why it couldn't, because RCS isn't encrypted, so you can see the data. Yeah, I'm guessing the reason it's not supported is because RCS has things like user is typing or user has seen, and your phone just doesn't have that.
Sure. I think that's... Your phone still has a lot of other things it needs to solve.
Yeah, your phone's not perfect. It's definitely beta software.
Do I think the future is MSIX, UWP, or PWA? I don't think it's either or. PWA definitely has a role. I tweeted out this week. I'm running right now Google Calendar, Twitter, Airtable, Slack, Google Hangouts, and Mixer as PWA apps because I prefer their performance and everything like that. That said, is that the future? For those apps, totally makes sense. I don't have to waste a browser tab. It's easy for me to find. I'm one of those people, I work all day behind a computer. I am that guy that has 40 tabs open in the browser and I have to go find Slack. It's a pain, right? Or, Airtable or anything like that. So I like having PWAs pinned to my taskbar. I know where they are. I treat them like apps. As to why I use Slack as a PWA versus Slack app, I found the PWA through the Edge Canary to be faster than the Slack app. It just performs better. So that's that. As to, is that the future though? Like, it depends. Is Adobe Elements or going to do video editing through PWA? Probably not. Maybe someday. There is a PWA type photo editing app out there. I forgot the name of it. We've covered it before. So these things are kind of capable. But I think for some people, you're going to absolutely need like heavy lifting This is a classic app. There's also proprietary stuff. A lot of places have their own custom software that's not going to be rewritten as a PWA. But for me in this light computing model, like I said, I just named all the things I'm using as PWA. Try Mixer as a PWA. It's awesome. Just go to, if you're using the new Edge, go to mixer.com, and then in the menu, scroll down and hit apps, and then install this site as an app and go for it. And watch how much better it is. It's cool as hell. So I'm a huge fan of this stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of consumer education around it because most people don't understand you can install a website as an app. So how do you facilitate that
I think that's
discovery?
One of the things Windows Lite, the experience, the user experience needs to nail. Like I think the start menu needs to almost be self-fulfilling in that when you browse a website enough times in Edge, it assumes that you would want to see this in the start menu. So when you say you go to Instagram.com every day, that's, I believe, is a PWA. If it's not, let's pretend it's a PWA. Edge can see it's a PWA, and it will, it has that little button in the address bar. It's like, hey, it's still here. But Windows Lite could work for you in a way that it sees that you're going to this website every day, and now when next time you open the start menu, Instagram is actually just there in the apps list, and then you can just click on it from there. Stuff like that, I think, is very important to the Windows Lite experience.
Yeah, they need like a little bouncy thing, like, hey, do you want to install this as an app? But yeah, it'd also be cool if it's based on AI and machine learning, where it sees your habits, and we're getting there. That's what that stuff's doing.
Yeah.
So it's asking, do I get reliable notifications from Slack as a PWA? Yeah, absolutely. If I didn't, I wouldn't be using it. But I always get my notifications
They're
from
probably
it.
more reliable than the actual one from the store.
Yeah, for me, it hasn't been a difference, but no, I've had no issues with notifications. Yeah, if it was bad, I wouldn't be using them.
I still use the Twitter from the store. I still just download everything from the store because I like the Microsoft Store.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I'm excited about is when they switch or give developers finally the option to switch, what do you call it, JavaScript from Edge HTML to V8, which is what powers the new Chromium experience, because that's the difference right there. For me, Twitter Chromium PWA performs much better than Twitter PWA in the store. Typing is no delay. Jiffy works a little bit better too. I've just had fewer issues with it. But yeah.
Someone's asking, what's the future of your phone? I mean, we don't really know too far into the future. We do know that the ability to make cellular phone calls through the Your Phone app on PC is coming. It will likely be exclusive to Galaxy phones because, the partnership and whatnot. But it is coming. And beyond that, I don't know. That's the last thing that when I first heard about this thing in the works, that was the phone calls, SMS notifications, photos, and being able to actually run apps from your phone were the 5 features that I heard were planned for your phone, and the cellular phone calls one is the last one to show up. Beyond that, I don't know, because I found out about your phone over a year before it actually showed up, and it wasn't called your phone at the time. It was called I think it was codenamed MMX, which is short for the Microsoft Mobile Experiences, but there was in the original concept that I saw, it was just like My People, and it was a button on the right-hand side of the taskbar that you clicked on, and a sidebar came out the side of the screen, and that had all of the Your Phone stuff in there, and it was very clean UI stuff. But that was before Microsoft decided to sort of modularize the OS and make everything an app, which is why Your Phone is an app today instead of an integrated system function, because they can update it on the fly, and that makes much more sense.
Yeah, and thanks to Novak, I won't pronounce your last name. Yeah, the app was called PhotoP, and we reviewed it. PhotoP is a PWA web-based photo editing app, and it's pretty good. It looks a lot like Photoshop in terms of all the tools available. So if you want to see the power of this stuff, you can just go to their website and, like I said, install it as an app. You can do this. I'm telling you, just try with the new Edge browser. It's pretty rad. I mean, the Chrome browser does this too. It's not anything unique, but yeah, I mean, if you go to a site a lot, Instagram, Twitter, Google Maps, Google Hangouts, Calendar, whatever, try installing it as an app. It's pretty rad.
Someone's asking if the new Chromium Edge has the ability to ink onto web pages yet. It does not, unfortunately. Maybe that will come soon. They haven't confirmed it's coming. But,
I mean, they're definitely working on it. We know it's a feature that they're going to work on.
Oh, we do know that already?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's on the list of things. Why would they? Yeah, you have to have inking. That's like a big deal. Everything they do is inking.
Did you use your internal mic today? Yeah, that's fine. I think Dan's actual mic is fine for the actual podcast audio file. You sounded a bit tinnier than usual today in Skype.
Sorry, maybe because of my windows open or something.
Well, there you go. What watch am I wearing? I'm wearing a Fitbit Versa. I love this thing. This is my fave. And I'm going to get the Fitbit Versa too. I've already pre-ordered mine. It comes in September. I'm excited. How do you install a website as an app? So if it can be, I mean, you can technically install any website. You just have to go into the triple dot menu in Edge, go down to apps, go down to more tools and then press pin to taskbar, and that will technically install it as an app. But some websites, PWAs, actually have native sort of APIs that call to the browser that will sort of promote this as an app you can install. And the button will show up in the address bar next to the favorites button. And if you go down to the apps area, there'll be a button that says install this as an app. So if you go to the triple dot menu, go down to apps, there'll be an option in there that says install this website as an app.
Just a clarification. So I think the last time Microsoft Edge features in plan was dark theme, other languages, smooth scrolling, turn off newsfeed, PDF features, reading view, reading list, spell check, show favorite icons only, favorites bar, share button, clear browsing data on exit. Rethinking and evolving. Set aside tabs, tab preview, ink notes, favorites hub button.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're rethinking it.
Yeah,
that means.
Yeah.
It'll probably just turn into a thing that taps into the screenshot tool.
Someone keeps asking repeatedly, HEVC, why not an Xbox One store for 4K HDR movie? No idea.
No idea. Don't care.
Yeah, sorry.
Do not spam it. Listen, we don't ask your questions because we just don't know the answer.
Yeah, seriously, don't spam or I'm just going to block you. It's annoying. Yeah.
Right, a couple more questions and we will say goodbye because it's Friday and I want to be done for the week. I'm excited to fly to Berlin.
Berlin's awesome. Beer, sausages, sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Really nice people. Most of them speak English. I feel comfortable.
Oh, they do?
Ubers.
They do?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because I've been sort of trying to memorize like common
It's a very
phrases in
cosmopolitan city. A lot of Germans there, but a lot of non-Germans. It's just it's a cool place. I just like Germany. I don't know. We'll see how.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, we'll see how I feel. Yeah, so I was asking, we're going to have a podcast next week. Probably.
Yeah, we'll have to see what our schedules are like and whether or not we can actually do it with our equipment and stuff. It might not be live. We might do a pre-recorded one and then just have it up on the stream.
There's also the time zone difference. We'll have to do it at... Oh, that's like at 8:30 at night would be local time there. Yeah, I guess would be around if we're not drunk.
Yeah, but we might not.
Or we could be drunk and do it, which would be even better because, as Zach knows, I'm on fire if I drink. But yeah, we'll see. Oh, we're going to tentatively plan. Zach, bring your C9 or your Brio with you if you can.
Yes.
And I'll bring mine, and I'll bring one of my Razer mics. We can, because we'll probably end up sharing, right? We'll probably just do it.
Well, if you bring a lav and I bring a lav, we could probably just use the lavs.
Got you. Good point.
We'll see how it goes. But yes. What mic am I using? I'm using a HyperX Quadcast. It's a cool mic. It looks cool. That's why I got it.
Any idea when we'll see the first foldable PCs come to market? I mean, the first one we saw was the Lenovo one, which we have a hands-on with. I don't expect that till mid 2020. That could be May, April, around there. It's going to partly depend on Windows Lights because it doesn't run Windows 10, despite it running Windows 10 when we showed it. So I think Lenovo may be the first one, but I don't know. As I mentioned, that's a pretty funny thing that someone just sent to me. Thank you for that, Sappy.
Yeah, I think the first foldables will be sort of spring to summertime 2020.
And I think we're going to see more companies announce these as we
might even see some more IFA. That'd be nice if there's just some foldables there.
Yeah, if there is, haven't had any
No,
inkling
yeah,
of
no,
it.
no. Could be a surprise. Microsoft may be like, don't tell anyone.
But um, is there a way to use a tablet as a second screen and use it another moment at just a tablet? Yeah. If so, what do you recommend? I don't know. That's weird. I think we've done something about that before about using tablets as connecting, but yeah, it's something I haven't really
You can
fooled around.
use Miracast, I believe. If you go into the quick actions and press on, which one would you press? Connect, maybe? And then you go to your other PC and then open the Connect app on your in the apps list, which it should be somewhere in mine. Yeah, there it is. You click on it and then you go into the quick actions on the other device, and you can see the device you just opened the Connect app on. Then you compare it, and remotely you can see what's on that other device on the one you just connected to.
So it's asking again that they miss how to install the app. So if you're in the new Edge Chromium, Canary, Dev, or Beta, go to the three dots in the upper right-hand corner. Click that, scroll down, you'll see below downloads a thing that says apps. Expand that menu, and you should see install the site as an app. There'll even be a little cool icon. And then hit yes, name it, and then it'll open. I would just pin it to your desktop. It should show up in your start menu. And that's it, you're good to go. Sometimes there's a bug where the icon changes. If that happens, just unpin it, repin it, and it should fix it. But I have, let's see, it even shows you everything you've installed. I have Twitter, Slack, IFA, oh, that's a Google Chat, Mixer, Airtable, and Calendar installed.
All right.
Do you think we'll see, yeah, do you see any improvements to Surface Pen? Sure. I mean, it's been like 2 years since I think they've had any major improvements, but I mean,
What else can you do? It's a pen.
Yeah, well, that's Steve Batchy's work. Really fascinating guy. That's basically Panos's like right-hand engineer. Um, I mean, they're always so well. What can you improve? It's always about the feel. So they spend a lot of time on the type of glass that they use that you ink on, so that in the pen tip, so that it actually feels very much like ink on paper, and that's a tough thing to simulate. But it's all about the materials you use and all this kind of stuff. So they spend time on that. They spend time on the latency. The latency is the biggest thing that tricks the brain to thinking you're using a real pen versus a digital one. Because when you use one that has low late or a lot of latency and you draw really fast, you see the line come behind it, you see that gap. Like that doesn't happen in real life, and your brain goes, "Oh, this isn't real. What's going on here?" So that's why they have a co-processor that helps with that. But they're always trying to drop that. The lower they can drop that, the more they can fool your brain to thinking this is really inking. So they always want to improve that. Sensitivity is always a big thing. Tilt. A lot of people complained. Some of the tilt isn't as good versus Wacom. I can't speak to that, but artists can. So there's a ton of improvements they can do here. And yeah, what it all surprised me that they, I doubt they went like the last time, like, oh, we're done with the pen. Pen team, you're gone. You're fired. We don't need you anymore. I'm sure they're always trying to improve it. So yeah, possibly. So just last question. Have Microsoft discussed any strategies for integrated new Edge into Windows? Will they replace old Edge in Windows Update or offer people to installer? Yeah, they haven't given a ton of guidance on this, but the thinking is definitely that probably the 20H1 updates could be pushed back to 20H2. You're going to download this update as a feature update. It's going to remove old Edge, and then it's going to have the new Edge as a store app installed already.
They've already started testing this a little bit. There are already checks in Windows today that when you install the Edge Beta or Edge Stable when that's available, it will just outright replace the old Edge. The old Edge is still in the system. It's just hidden from the user now, and it doesn't pop up anymore or show up in lists. It's not in the apps list or start menu. And when the Edge Stable / Beta gets installed, it like slides in and just replaces Edge wherever Edge shows up. So if you have Edge pinned to the desktop and taskbar, when you install the new Edge, it just sort of replaces itself with the new icon and the new sort of browser instead. Same in the apps list, same in any drop-down menu that would list Microsoft Edge. and the old edge basically just gets muted in the system. You can't find it no more. The system doesn't see it, and that's how that will basically happen when it starts being integrated in the OS itself. Because I don't think they'll push it as a standalone update. I think if they're going to introduce it to Windows 10 users, it will be with a feature update, likely 20H1 or 20H2. And that's how that will work. It will sort of seamlessly integrate with the old Edge, and the user will just see a new Edge experience, and then continue on their life. And I'm assuming all of the data from old Edge will be automatically ported into new Edge. I'd be surprised if it isn't.
Yeah, I can already do that when you first run it too. Just real quickly, someone's asking, what advice would you give to a youngster wanting to pursue a career in what you guys do, degree, etc. wise? Weird question. None of us planned on doing this job. So there's that. You can go check out my LinkedIn. My background's in poli-sci and then eventually brain science and language. I was doing a PhD in that. But and Zach, did you go to college? Secondary school?
Yeah, I went to secondary school. I went to college, and I studied media. I did media studies, and I did broadcast. I was going to go into like film editing, I believe, or TV production, and I ended up here.
And I think Zach probably has the if I had to give a route, I would go into media broadcasting and editing. Video is a big deal. I would definitely recommend having video chops, both editing and shooting yourself. Also, open up your own blog. Go onto WordPress or whatever like that. Start your own blog. Start doing reviews. Start circulating them around. We've hired writers in the past because they just wrote a lot on their own and they're able to share stuff, and I was able to read it. And so, but it's a job that it's hard to apply for. Sometimes you do come across a site. We do hire once in a while. But yeah, you have to be passionate. Do it as a hobby. We all did this stuff as hobbies. And then someone eventually came along. We're like, we'll pay you to do what you're doing.
If you want to do this like full time as like a professional journalist, I'd study journalism. That's probably the one to get. If you want to work at like the Wall Street Journal and stuff, then you want to study journalism. Otherwise.
But like I said, I would definitely do the media stuff, video editing, and everything.
If you want to be a YouTuber, at least.
and when it hurts to take some introductory courses to like Microsoft programming or IT and stuff like that, because it doesn't. That my weakness is I don't know jack about programming. It's just not my forte. But
yeah, I did a course in Microsoft Office when I was younger, and I forgot everything. Apart from the Word stuff. The Word stuff is the one I remember. But I used to be really good at Excel, and now I'm not because I just forgot it all.
Excel's a challenge.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I think that does it. Wait, what are your thoughts about Huawei's Galaxy Fold foldable device? Quickly, I did get to play with it in China. It was cool. I only had it for a few minutes. I thought it felt really awesome. I'm excited about it. I don't know if I'd pay $2,500 for it. I'm more, we talked about this on the podcast before. Foldable phones to me are very exciting. Listen, if you gave me a foldable phone, I'm going to be geeking out on it, right? But I do think that foldable PCs are more interesting and more practical because they're technically larger devices. And by folding them in half, you actually save more space than you do with a foldable phone. The foldable phone, it's cool, but I don't know. I think it's all exciting technology. I think Huawei's device looks really neat, and I like the way I like Huawei's hardware. I think they're smart. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So,
all right.
Whew.
Thank you, guys.
We'll
be
talk
back.
to you guys
We'll
next.
maybe be back next week. We'll see. Okay. Goodbye.